Ahoy there! Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another episode of the Catskull Academy, the series that aims to teach you everything you'll need to know about the various different gameplay mechanics and systems in EVE Echoes. In today's lesson, we're going to be taking a look at the advanced mechanics behind data and relic sites. As such, this lesson does assume that you've already watched the video on how data sites and relic sites actually work, and if you haven't, I do strongly recommend that you put this video on pause, go and watch that one first, and then come back. This is not going to make much sense if you don't already know the basics of what data and relic sites actually are. But, assuming that you've already watched that video, today's lesson is going to be going over the advanced mechanics of these sites. What kind of loot can you actually find inside them? Which modules are you going to need? What kind of scan resolution and scan radius are you going to require? This kind of thing. We're going to be going over the in-depth mechanics of how these all work. Plus, I'm going to be talking about how I actually came to all of this so that other people can check my maths and make sure that everything is correct and above board, and data will be displayed throughout the video. Now, if you do enjoy this video, let me know by hitting a like on it, sub to the channel for all things EVE Echoes, making sure to ding that notification bell and select all notifications so that you never miss an upload. If you do want to go the extra mile to support this channel, there are two ways to do so. You can find us on Patreon, where you can pledge to support the channel and learn more about my life in Africa whilst earning some exclusive merchandise, and we have a dedicated merchandise store as well over on Redbubble. Links for all of that are in the description below. That all said and done then, let's talk about the advanced mechanics behind relic and data sites. First of all then, let's talk about data sites. Now, data sites are unique exploration sites that are found in high-sec, low-sec, and null-sec, and across all 5 of the 5 different pirate factions. If you scan down a data site with a wide resonance scanner, you can tell a lot of the information about it from its name. The name will actually be divided into 3 distinct identifiers. It'll be a name like, for example, local Guristus virus test site. Now, the local tells you whether or not you're in high-sec, low-sec, or null-sec. If you're in high-sec, it will be a local site. If you're in low-sec, it will be a regional site. And if you're in null-sec, it will be a central site. The second part is obviously the pirate faction relevant to it, so this will be Angel, Blood Raider, Nation, Guristas, or Serpentis based on where you are, and that will tell you a lot about what kind of loot you'll find inside the containers. The final part is the sort of lore and fluffy bit, the virus test site, the mainframe, the command center, the data processing unit, that kind of thing. This tells you what type of containers you will find within that site. Now, when we're talking about containers, in a data site, there are 4 types of containers, ranging from easiest to most difficult to open, are info shards, which are difficulty 1, they require an analyzer strength of 1 to open, com towers require an analyzer strength of 2, mainframes will require an analyzer strength of 3, and data banks will require an analyzer strength of 4 to open. Now, what kind of loot can you expect to find within these containers? Well, first of all, data cores based on the faction. So if you're in Serpentis space, you will of course find Galente data cores, and the same kind of data cores that you would otherwise find in, say, an Inquisitor anomaly. Same is true for all the other empires, by the way. I give Serpentis as an example, but if you're in Minmatar space and you find an Angel sparking transmitter, for example, that will contain Angel Minmatar data cores and the other data cores that are relevant to that particular faction. It will also contain decryptors. These are a new and interesting piece of loot for industrialists that allow them to modify how their output process works. For example, you might reduce the costs required to manufacture an item whilst increasing the time it takes to actually bake. You might find that it increases the cost slightly but doubles the output. Things like this. These are where you find these decryptors. If you're an industrialist and you're looking for decryptors, you're finding them in data sites. You'll then also find what is being referred to as blue salvage. These are used in integrated rig production. They look like the charred microcircuits and other rig pieces, but they have a blue glow effect to them, and they are used in making integrated rigs. Now, I've got a chart on screen here now, and I will put a link in the description below as well, that shows how all of this works. You can see here all the different names for the different types of data sites. Every single data site possible in EVE Echoes is on this chart, along with how many info shards, com towers, mainframes, and data banks will actually be found in it. Now you'll notice that if you're in high-sec and scanning down local data sites, you will only find info shards and comm towers. If you go into low-sec, you will start to find mainframes, the difficulty 3, and if you're in null-sec, you won't find any info shards, but you will find databanks. Databanks are exclusive to the null-sec central data sites. Now, the loot doesn't actually change all that much between them. Ultimately, the higher difficulty sites, the higher difficulty containers do not contain anything that is not already found in the lower ones. Just you are likely to find more items in the higher tier ones. So for example, a databank, despite being difficulty 4 to open, does not contain anything that cannot be found already in info shards, comm towers, and mainframes. And I have proved that you can find the very best decryptors in the game in info shards, so it is worth looking. The drop rate does seem to be higher in the higher difficulty containers, but they do still appear in the lower difficulty ones. So don't feel that if you don't have a high enough meta level analyzer to decrypt all of the containers that there's no point going. You can still get that loot in the easier to open boxes as well, which personally I think is really awesome. Let's talk then about relic sites next. These are fairly similar to data sites. They can be found in high-sec, low-sec, and null-sec. They can be found across all 5 of the different pirate factions, and when you scan one down using a wide resonance scanner, its name is divided into 3 identifiers that tell you a lot of information about what that site is and what it contains. First of all then is the security level identifier. If you're in high-sec, it will be crumbling. If you're in low-sec, it will be decayed, and if you're in null-sec, it will be ruined. The second part is the pirate identifier. This will then read either Angel, Blood Raider, Guristus, Nation, or Serpentis, depending on what type of pirate loot is to be found within it. And the third part of the name is the lore and fluffy bit. There'll be something like an antiquated outpost, a solar harvester, a mine, a collision site, a science outpost, that kind of thing. And this tells you the number and distribution of the different containers found inside it. If you warp into a relic site, you'll find 4 different levels of containers. The debris are the easiest to open and only require an analyzer strength of 1. Rubble requires analyzer strength of 2. Remains requires analyzer strength of 3. And ruins require analyzer strength of 4. Now, the loot that you will find inside these consists mainly of rig blueprints, blueprint salvage, the same as you would get for refactoring that faction's debris. So for example, if you're in Angel space going through an Angel relic site, it will contain the salvage materials that you would get if you were to reprocess Angel debris and Minmatar debris, that kind of thing. You'll also find integrated rig blueprints, so if you've found any of the blue salvage in data sites, the blueprints that you use those in are found in the relic sites. Now, the actual level of loot does differ from box to box. Like with data sites, if you can open the difficulty level 3, if you have an analyzer with an analyzer strength of 3, the complete loot table is open to you. There is nothing found in ruins, the difficulty level 4 containers, that is not also found in difficulty 1, 2, or 3. It's just that there are things that are only found in 3, not found in 2, and not found in 1. What I mean here is that debris contains tier 1 rigs, rubble contains tier 1 and tier 2 rigs, and remains contains tier 1 and tier 3 rigs. The ruins, however, contain tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 rigs, which of course are the same rigs that can be found within the other containers. Now these of course are then divided based on what you would find in that particular faction space. So for example, if you're in Angel space, you will find drone BPs, drone rig BPs, missile rigs, cannon rigs, shield rigs, and hull rigs. Blood Raiders will have engineering rigs, electronic rigs, industry rigs, drone rigs, laser rigs, and armor rigs. Guristus will have engineering rigs, drone rigs, missile rigs, railgun rigs, shield rigs, and hull rigs. Sansha will have navigation rigs, industrial rigs, laser rigs, shield rigs, and hull rigs. And Serpentis will have navigation rigs, engineering rigs, electronic rigs, drone rigs, rail rigs, decomposer rigs, armor rigs, and hull rigs. And man, I just said rigs an awful lot in one sentence. The point I want to stress here is that you can only get a meta level 5 analyzer, the one that has analyzer strength of 3, the entire loot pool is available to you. There is nothing that exists in ruin boxes that does not exist in the lower 3 tiers. Now, whilst everything we've talked about so far in this video is relevant exclusively to data sites or to relic sites, this next section I want to talk about things that are shared and are pertinent to both. This is therefore kind of a tips and tricks and advanced information section that is everything you need to know about both sites combined. This applies to both relic sites and to data sites. First of all, let's talk about the source radius of these sites. What minimum scan radius are you going to need in order to locate them? Now, in order to reverse engineer this, I created every single relic and data site available in EVE Echoes in one system that had a station. I then undocked, I scanned everything down with the scanner I had, checked off everything on the list, looted it all to make it despawn, then respawned all of them, docked back up again, increased my minimum scan radius, therefore reducing my scanning effectiveness, undocked, and tried again. And I repeated this until I eventually had a layout of what scan radiuses could locate the various different sites, and I've got a full list of this, which again I will show on screen here. I'm missing 4 or 5 of the sites just because I couldn't actually get a boundary to scan between them, so I've theorized on a couple of those, but otherwise we have full information on what kind of minimum scan radius you will require in order to locate these different sites. And the basic breakdown is that if you can get yourself down to 230 meters of minimum scan radius, which is coincidentally the minimum scan radius of an Explorer level wide resonance scanner, that will unlock the ability to scan every single relic and data site found in HiSec. All of the HiSec ones have a source radius equal to or greater than 230 meters. If, however, you want to venture into low-sec, then you will need to go down to 120 meters minimum scan radius. The smallest sites in low-sec have a source radius of 120 meters. There are some that are a lot higher. There are some up at 210 and 180 and things like that, but having a minimum scan radius of 120 meters will allow you to find every site possible in low-sec. If you want to have every site scannable, however, you have a magic number of 75 meters minimum scan radius. If you can reach 75 meters minimum scan radius, that is the minimum necessary for every single site in the game. Going smaller may reduce the number of signals that need to be isolated from the signal waves of some of the more difficult ones, but if you have a 75 meter minimum scan radius, you will be able to scan down every single relic site and data site in EVE Echoes. Now, some people have said to me, you know, I've got a really small scan radius. Some people have literally got it right the way down to like 55, and they said, I still can't find any sites. Maybe there are some smaller than this. No, there aren't. Relic and data sites, at the time of me making this video, have a respawn timer of 108 hours. That's 4.5 days. This means that once a site has been scanned, it has been looted, and then it despawns, it goes on a timer for 108 hours before it respawns. The reason that they are difficult to find at the moment is because there are just not that many of them in existence. People have scanned down all of the existing ones, and it's a long respawn timer for it to come back. Now, I would hopefully like to see this changed to be more in line with EVE Online's system. In EVE Online, when a relic or data site despawns, another relic or data site, the same type as the one that despawned, is spawned immediately in another system randomly generated in the same region. Therefore, if, for example, you are in Malden Heath and you scan down a relic site and you loot it, somewhere in Malden Heath, another relic site has just been spawned, and I would like to see that change to that being the case in EVE Echoes 2. I think it's an interesting way that keeps those sites constantly spawning without giving an easy way of farming them, because it could literally be the next system over, it could be the same system, or it could be literally the opposite end of the region you're in, and considering some regions have as many as 160 systems, well, yes, that's kind of how it balances there, and hopefully if there are other people exploring, they're going to find those. It's worth noting as well that sites are not safe. They don't contain any NPCs, which is an important distinction. In EVE Online, there are certain sites, like for example ghost sites, that you have a certain time before pirates arrive and attack you, and there are of course the Droneland sites as well, found in areas like Peregrine Falls and Cobalt Edge, areas that are not currently open in EVE Echoes, where there are rogue drones that you have to destroy in order to, or you get in, scan, and quickly get out before they destroy you, sort of thing. There are no NPCs in Relic or data sites in EVE Echoes currently. However, you are still at risk from other pilots. If you're in low-sec or null-sec, there is the possibility that other people will scan down that same site that you're in, or they might be using a narrow resonance scanner and just scan you down. You can still be attacked by other players, as long as you're in low-sec or null-sec, of course. Even in these sites, you are still at risk from other players. The one point I do really want to stress, however, is that a meta level 8 is not necessary when it comes to analysing. Now, the loot table in difficulty 1, 2, and 3 containers does cover every single piece of loot that is available in difficulty 4 containers. There is nothing in a ruins that is not available in debris, rubble, and remains. There is nothing in databanks that is not also found in info shards, comm towers, and mainframes. With relic sites, it's important to note that if you're looking for tier 3 rigs, you will need that meta level 5 because the tier 3 rigs are only found in remains and ruins, but you can still get them in ruins. So never look at yourself and think, my meta level scanner isn't good enough to get everything, therefore there's no point scanning. Especially if you're in high sec. If you're in high sec, you will never need higher than analysis strength of 2. High sec local data sites only contain info shards and comm towers. Local crumbling relic sites only contain debris and rubble. If you're in low sec, you will need that third, the ability to open the third tier of boxes, because in regional sites, yes, you get info, comm towers, and mainframes, and in low sec decayed sites, you will find debris, rubble, and remains. If you're going into null sec, yes, you're probably going to want to have the full meta level 8, because some of those do have more ruins and more databanks, for example, than anything else. For example, if you're lucky enough to scan down, say, a central Angel data processing center, that will contain 1 comm tower, 2 mainframes, and 4 databanks. And if you've only got a meta level 5 at that point, yeah, I'll be honest, that does kind of suck to warp into that and have 4 out of the 7 containers be out of your reach. But if you're in low sec or above, a meta level 5 is more than enough to do everything you need. And even in null sec, you can still open the meta level 3, the strength 3 and strength 2 required containers, and still get the same loot that you might get in those meta level 4 ones. Meta 8 is therefore not completely necessary, but it does increase your total capable loot, and Meta 8 do have a higher percentage unlock chance. There's nothing exclusive to those boxes, but you're increasing your loot pool, so you're more likely to get some stuff. That's the point I'm trying to make here. Skills. In regards to how this works, skills will only help your percentage unlock chance. They don't help you increase the type of boxes that you can open, so therefore if you're training into hacking, you're only increasing your unlock chance percentage on these different boxes, which is well worth training into. At the top tier, you can get up to 24% per action, and therefore that gives you a much higher chance of opening some of those more difficult boxes. It's also worth training into space exploration tech to make sites easier to find. You can then therefore use lower level equipment and not have to rig for things if you're trying to reach a certain particular minimum scan radius in order to scan down sites. Anyway, this has been one hell of a project to put together and try and find all the information here. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to ZGod for his amazing database, giving me the loot of the different rig BPs to compare against the Inquisitor and Scouts. If you can find a rig BP in an Angel, Inquisitor, or Scout, it exists in an Angel Relic site and vice versa. That is also confirmed. So I want to give a big shout out and thank you to ZGod for that absolutely amazing spreadsheet that he's got up and running on that. That was a huge help. All my information here is readily available. I will put it somewhere and link it below, so if you want to double check my workings, you can do and compare that against your own notes, but as I said, I have spent literally days in Fulmination. I know the jokes of Captain Benzie lives on Fulmination. Normally, definitely not true. I spend much more time on live than I do in Fulmination because it's boring there, there's no one to play with, and you don't really have a sense of, achieving anything when you can just create stuff. But I've spent days literally spawning every single one of these sites. There are 20 data sites, 20 relic sites. I've spawned every single one of those for all 5 pirate nations. That's 100 different relic sites and 100 different data sites, and I've spawned all of those at least 4 times to make sure that the loot information is correct. I've looted every single one of them, just to, you know, double check the loot tables, double check that the number of info shards, com towers, mainframes, databanks, that kind of thing is completely accurate. The process of reverse engineering the source radiuses, my goodness, that was not fun. Undock, scan down, loot everything, dock back up, increase minimum scan radius to something worse, undock, do it all again, and just do that repeatedly until I had an idea of which sites appear at which source radius. So I really hope this helps you folks. This has been one heck of an experience for me. I never want to do it again. Thank you for watching. Please show some love and support in the comment section down below so that I don't cry myself to sleep over how arduous this all was. Really hope it helps. Otherwise, thank you for watching, happy sailing, and see you in New Eden.